Expect to see Devin Booker struggling like that for a second game in a row. I didn't expect Patrick Beverley and Terrence Mann to have that kind of impact. I did expect a little rust from Chris Paul. And hell, I expected the Clippers to win. Here's the thing though. One game away from this series being tied. We might have ourselves a 7-game series. First take in the house. Let's go.
Great theater through the first 2 games of this series, and Chris Paul is back.
All our guys are back together. He's the guy.
Lobs to the rim. Punched into the Andre Ayton.
Side for the slam.
They can't be the more desperate team.
Oh, he takes it in. That's good.
Clippers are the hardest working team on the court tonight. We just play hard. Just win or go home, in my opinion, right now. I would just leave it on the floor.
Good day. What's going on, everybody? Welcome into First Take on this Feel Good Friday. We got some beats happening. I'm into it. Hi, Max Kellerman. I'm Molly Karen Rose. Hey, Stephen A. Before we get started, I know there was something you wanted to tell us real quick.
What's going on? Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Before we get into the show, Max, I don't need a comment. Molly, I don't need a comment. I just want to say something. The Los Angeles Clippers fans should be ashamed of themselves. They were an absolute disgrace last night. I mean, people coming late. Barely coming at all. The crowd was timid. The crowd was tepid. Let me tell you something right now. Watch the games in Milwaukee. You'll see those fans going ballistic. I was in Atlanta for the Knicks-Hawks series. Those fans are going ballistic. Max, Molly, you got to get yourself out to the valley because the Phoenix Suns fans are off the chain. I mean, it's electrifying, the kind of atmosphere where your hair is standing up on your skin. Everybody's hyped. And the Los Angeles Clippers, here you are in the Western Conference Finals. The Lakers ain't there, but you are. And you waited all of these years for this team to get here. And I'm talking about they strolling up in the second quarter. I don't want to hear about no LA traffic and all of this other stuff. It's the Western Conference Finals. Even when they got there, they weren't nearly as loud. Last week in Game 6 against the Utah Jazz when they closed it out, that was an electrifying environment. You would have thought that would have been the case yesterday, last night, but it wasn't. The Los Angeles fans need to step the hell up. You know why? Because if the Clippers are successful, like I said to Magic Johnson the other day, that puts more of an onus on the Lakers to be more successful as well. And anytime you got that kind of atmosphere going on in Los Angeles when it comes to basketball, it's great for the NBA. I was very disappointed in the Clippers fans last night, and I just want to say that.
All three of us know LA does not care about the Clippers. They don't care about the Clippers.
Stop. That's not what this is about.
But that's why they're like that.
Listen, the Clippers are the only team playing in basketball. If you care about basketball,
no, they don't.
This is not about the Clippers.
No.
This is not
LA
about the Clippers.
actively doesn't like the Clippers. LA roots against the Clippers.
I just finished saying to you last Friday against the Utah Jazz in Game 6, I've never seen a Clippers environment like that in my life. It was spectacular. But a week later, here you are. You don't show up. You love basketball. You love basketball. Be there.
In the first ever Western Conference Finals home game in franchise history. First ever, they didn't show up.
So what?
No, they should.
That's even more of a reason to be excited.
Yeah.
But they got the job done. So, guys, let's get right into it now because we do have a series, folks. The Clippers get one at home, even without Kawhi Leonard, even without the fans showing up on the court and on the return of Chris Paul. So, PG-13, 27, 15, and 8, plus some in-game heroics from half court. Paul, how'd you pull off the win?
You have to take care of home court. And, this is a scrappy team. We have to match their physicality. I thought we did that. We have to match their scrappiness. I thought we did that. And that's really the key. We can't allow this team to play harder than us. And I thought that was just the way we approached tonight.
They outplayed us tonight. You know what I mean? We didn't make shots. You could tell they had, a lot more energy. And I got to be better. I shot terrible. You know what I mean? I got to pick up the pace. We'll be ready game 4.
He was a little rusty, but he certainly can dress. The Clippers are attempting their third second down 2-0 comeback in this series. Can they pull it off? LA has a 9-1 record after games 1 and 2 with 5 double-digit wins when trailing by multiple games. Game 4 is tomorrow night on ESPN. Stephen A., is this more about the Suns or the Clippers?
I'm going to let Max go first on this. Go ahead, Max.
Oh, it's the Clippers. I'll save. I'm going to say the Clippers, and I'll save CP3 and Devin Booker for you. But this is the Clippers. This is Ty Lue. You got to give it to the guy. It's not like he didn't coach well in the first 2 games, considering he didn't have his best player, and they lost by the skin of their teeth on the road. In front of a raucous crowd. Stephen A is complaining their crowd isn't good, but the Phoenix crowd was good. And they won. They came within a possession of winning both games, really. And that's Ty Lue. In the last series, he goes to the small ball lineup, Nick Batum. And in this series, he realizes, wait, I got to get bigger. Puts in Zubac, right? But then it's not just, well, okay, fine, I've made this one substitution, basically, or changed the rotation a little bit. What happened last night that was even different from game 2? It was a very close game. It's Zubac and Morris off the bench. There's no Boogie Cousins in the rotation. There's Terrence Mann defensively getting an enormous assignment. There's Patrick Beverley. So first it's the in-game adjustments and the in-series adjustments. But then it's also, Stephen A, the confidence Ty Lue instills in his team. I'm thinking of the play where Kennard, late in the game, missed that 3. Remember, it would have put him up 19. The game would have been done in the fourth quarter. He misses the 3. They come back on the other end. They hit a 3. It's now a 13-point game. They cut it to single digits, and you started getting the feeling, here it comes, Chris Paul, Devin Booker. They're going to do it again. They could sweep the Clippers. But they remained resilient. That has a lot to do with their leader, who is, in fact, their coach, Ty Lue.
Ty Lue may very well be the best coach in basketball right now. And what I love about it is that he could have had the Knicks job. Not the Knicks job. He should have had the Brooklyn Nets job. That wasn't to be. He should have had the Lakers job. That wasn't to be. But what I love about him right now is that without LeBron James, he's showing his brilliance as a coach and showing that he's a top-notch coach that should have been given far more credit than he ever received. That's number one. Having said all of that, I would tell you it's still the Suns for me as it pertains to the question because of the shooting woes of Devin Booker and Chris Paul, obviously. 5 for 21, 5 for 19, a combined 10 for 40. They haven't missed 30 shots in a game all year long. But that's what happened last night. You can also attribute injuries to it to some degree because Cameron Payne being out after just 4 minutes due to an ankle injury is a tremendous loss. How do we know this? Because in game 2, the brother played 37 minutes backing up CP3, who was out due to COVID. And what happened? This dude drops 29 points, 8 assists without a single turnover. 0 turnovers in 37 minutes. That's a brother you miss when you consider that, particularly when he shot 50% from the field in that game as well, en route to those 29 points. He pushes the ball up the floor. He's aggressive. His aggression and his athleticism can match what the Beverleys and the Terrence Manns of the world may throw at you. And we know they played stout defense on Devin Booker. But let's face reality. If we really calling it like we see it, this dude got his nose broke in game 2. He's playing with a mask on in game 3. So I'll throw him a slight mulligan in that regard. But in the end, it comes down to CP3 and Devin Booker. If they play like that, Phoenix is going to lose this series. They know they have to play better. They have to be better. You can't be that ineffective and that inefficient against these Clippers. We see how exceptionally well coached they are. We see that they're a bunch of rough riders. We see that they're not scared of anything. And you combine that with Booker and CP3 shooting the ball the way that they did. I'm sorry. And let me not forget to put Zubac in there with 16 points, 15 rebounds. We've been raving about DeAndre Ayton, but Zubac sold up last night and was formidable in and of himself. So all of those things played a role.
Well, you can't deny injury. Like Payne and Chris Paul and Devin Booker, you can point to bad luck and you'd be right. Just like you could point to bad luck with Kawhi and you'd also be right. I've said from the beginning, injury has completely decided the playoffs this series. Every series you're seeing the best or second best player on the team out with injury, like starting with the Lakers and KD and AD and LeBron and AD and the Nets, obviously Harden and Kyrie in every series. And this series is no different. But again, the Clippers were on the other end of that when they weren't playing with Kawhi, who they still didn't have. And we didn't, when we were analyzing that game, simply say, well, they don't have Kawhi, therefore we lost. You have to get into why. You're absolutely right to say Devin Booker shows up basically with a broken face and a face mask. It probably affected his shooting. Chris Paul comes off of health and safety protocols, or did he have COVID? I don't know. But clearly he was affected. He was rusty. He was not the usual Chris Paul. Cameron Payne hurt him earlier, and if he's not available, all those things are true. Then the question is, what are you going to do about it? Are you prepared for the opportunity? And a lot of other coaches, Stephen A., other than if it's not Ty Lue, don't have the courage to make those kind of adjustments, the courage of their convictions, and say, nope, we're going to change this right now. Ty Lue does, and he's not afraid to. We think about, and we're going to talk about this later in the show, but the Philadelphia 76ers, do they lose that series if Ty Lue is their coach?
Well, probably not, because Ty Lue probably would have benched Ben Simmons. So that's something that's worthy of pointing out. I don't know the answer to that question, but what I will tell you is this. When you look at these playoffs, we got a Clippers team. Just like I said, these playoffs are, injuries aside, these playoffs have been incredibly thrilling. I mean, right now, night to night, we're looking at the Atlanta Hawks, and I said to you the other day, they could win the championship. Well, guess what? So could the Clippers without Kawhi Leonard.
I don't see him winning the championship without Kawhi, Stephen A.
I didn't say I see it, man. I said they could. That's all I'm trying to say.
Everything's up for grabs.
And what I mean is everything's up for grabs, because right now, let's say, for example, Atlanta. Suppose Atlanta beats Milwaukee, and then the Clippers end up upending Phoenix. And then you got those Rough Riders putting the same kind of defense on Trae Young that we saw them do against Devin Booker over the last two games, or to a lesser degree CP3 last night. All I'm trying to say is that it's really up for grabs, and you don't know, which makes it very exciting.
If they can win a championship without Kawhi, put Ty Lue in the Hall of Fame right now. Stephen A., the reason I brought up the Clippers is who was their last coach? Doc Rivers. If Doc was the coach of the Clippers, they'd be down 0-3 right now.
Interesting point. We'll get into that a little bit later. The other part that's interesting, Stephen A., it's all up for grabs. We also have 4 teams that haven't won a chip since the merger, which is, I think, 76. We'll keep it rolling here, fellas. More good stuff to get to in the NBA. The Hall of Famer, Scottie Pippen, talking all things NBA with GQ. When he was asked if KD is now better than LeBron, here's what he had to say. KD can score better than LeBron, probably always has been able to, but has he surpassed LeBron? Nah. He tried to beat the Milwaukee Bucks instead of utilizing his team. LeBron James would have figured out how to beat them, and he wouldn't have been exhausted, and he may not have taken the last shot. But LeBron ain't KD, and KD ain't LeBron. KD's a shooter, a scorer, but he doesn't have what LeBron has. So you all know, KD's got rabbit ears. He's quick to clap back, and he doesn't hold back, posting this response on Twitter. Didn't the great Scottie Pippen refuse to go in the game for the last second shot because he was in his feelings? His coach drew up the play for a better shooter. This guy, Scott, also wanted to enjoy his summer, so he chose to rehab during the season. Laugh out loud. Yo, Scottie Pippen, they followed Phil, not you. Stephen A., what do you think of KD's response?
I thought it was unnecessary. He's not wrong, though. What he pointed out about Scottie Pippen was accurate. He did. I mean, those things are true. He didn't lie, but it was just unnecessary. Scottie Pippen basically said you're a scorer and a shooter. You know, you don't have what LeBron has because LeBron is more the distributor of the basketball, et cetera, et cetera. Scottie Pippen's not being phony in his analysis, because that's essentially what Scottie Pippen was to a lesser degree. Scottie Pippen was somebody that, even though he could score, obviously he had MJ, he was a bit deferential. Scottie Pippen was somebody that was an elite defender. He's a 6-time champion. Michael Jordan acknowledges he couldn't have done that without Scottie Pippen. And KD is a person that religiously preaches about playing the right way, going to a place where you know how to play basketball the right way. And no one, absolutely no one, would accuse Scottie Pippen of playing the wrong way, because we all know that he's a 6-time champion. And we know how elite he was on a multitude of levels. He just wasn't the scorer that Michael Jordan was, which nobody has been, as far as I'm concerned. KD might be that guy. But in the end, I'm just looking at KD. KD didn't lie about Scottie Pippen. And I know that. But I'm like, this is a 6-time champion breaking down basketball. Did what he say is incorrect about KD? Are you not a scorer? Not that you can't pass, not that you can't distribute, not that you can't lead when called upon. I personally believe the only reason you lost this series to Milwaukee is because Kyrie got hurt and you were absolutely exhausted because you had to do everything by yourself. We all know that about KD. Just watch the games and you know that. But I just felt like it was a bit unnecessary to come at Scottie Pippen like that because he gave basketball analysis, something he's incredibly qualified to do. And the only reason in my mind why KD would feel compelled to come at him like that is because KD had a problem with him saying you're not LeBron, which is a different discussion.
Yeah, I mean, Scottie Pippen's in the media and his opinion is solicited by people. KD just clapped back at Scottie Pippen. It felt much more personal, whereas Scottie Pippen was just giving you basketball analysis. But I'm not mad at KD. That's who KD is. We know that already. He does have rabbit ears. And there's something, he went at Jay Will recently. And Stephen A, Jay Will has talked so glowingly of KD, like behind closed doors, he just thinks that much of him as a player. And put me up on something. He said something to me that sparked this thought, where everyone's sort of on KD because he claps back, even on social media. Some anonymous fan like, KD, what are you doing? But it says something about KD that he doesn't care who it is, whether it's Scottie Pippen or some anonymous fan.
Joe Schmo.
Yeah. He actually, in a way, it's that it feels like, well, he's actually respectful of everybody because he values everyone's opinion. Now, maybe too much. Maybe he does have rabbit ears, right? Like, why are you so sensitive? He actually does care what people think. And Stephen A, he doesn't, if that's who he is, that's who he is. I agree with Scottie Pippen's point that LeBron is better than KD because he elevates people around him. But I don't agree with his point that KD doesn't elevate people around him. LeBron does it even better. But I don't see KD as, I'm going to try and beat this team by myself. When he had one dude with him in Kyrie, he was whooping them. It was like they should have called a mercy rule after 2 games almost. When he had no one with him, when James Harden couldn't move, couldn't shoot, couldn't defend, couldn't get out in transition, when he had no one with him, of course they beat him. But even then, he played so well, he gave his team a chance to win. I see KD as a very much a team player. So I don't agree with Scottie he's just trying to beat that team by himself. He does what's called for. KD will do what his team needs. But I do think it's valid to say LeBron's greatness, while he can't score like KD, is he's better in other areas, elevating people. Because Stephen A, who's ever been as good at elevating teammates as LeBron? He might be the best ever at that.
Well, so says you. I don't necessarily always agree with that. As a matter of fact, Kyrie wanted to leave. Yeah, they won a championship in Cleveland, but in terms of Kyrie's personal growth as a player and showcasing his talent, he didn't believe the ideal spot was for him to play with LeBron James. But that's a different debate for another day. The issue for me is not that KD claps back. He has every right to clap back. I have no problem with that. My problem is the kind of things that he says. It's like if years ago when Charles Barkley was given basketball analysis about LeBron James, and he went up, he said, damn, what do you want, everything? What happened to wanting to compete? In other words, instead of joining forces, going against them. So he said the words, do you not want to compete and what have you? And then LeBron used that as an excuse to bring up, throwing somebody through a plate glass window or, gambling debts and all of this other stuff. Charles Barkley was giving basketball analysis. All of a sudden, LeBron got personal on a very classless level as far as I'm concerned. KD, it's not that he clapped back. It's that what does what you had to say about Scottie Pippen have to do with what Scottie Pippen was saying about from a basketball analysis perspective, about your game compared to LeBron James? You see what I'm saying? That one has nothing to do with the other.
Yeah.
And that's where my issue comes into play. You can clap back at somebody, but the point is address the subject that they
don't murder the messenger.
Yeah.
Address the subject that was
unless
broached.
he's just trying to say, I don't respect you, so I don't respect your opinion.
And how you not going to respect the 6-time champion?
Scottie Pippen. You have to respect Scottie Pippen.
6 times.
I'm sure KD does, and that's my point, Molly. KD, in a way, you could look at it 2 ways. One, he's being disrespectful in a way. In another way, he respects everyone the same. And by the way, that respect goes right up until he feels you take a shot at him. And then, then he gets mad and has something to say. But he treats Scottie Pippen just like the fan, on social media, the anonymous fan on social media.
Somebody could easily bring up the fact he didn't clap back at Draymond Green when Draymond said what he said to his face.
Yep. But as of late, he's been pretty consistent that, he's going at
KD's
everybody
phenomenal.
if they come at him. Yeah. All right, we'll wrap it up there, guys. When we come back, Trae Young burst into superstardom after his shimmying his way to a Game 1 win. But is he the most important player heading into Game 2? We discuss that next. Plus, Mark Cuban making several changes since Luka voiced his unhappiness. Will the Jason Kidd head coach hire backfire or help Luka long term? Stay tuned.
It feels good.
Young fires one more dagger.
I know where we are. I know what they do when the show is over.
Trae Young with a miraculous shot. It got real quiet.
I play with excitement. I feel fun. I love it.
Nobody came to pick him up. He hesitates and hits.
So I'm obviously doing something right. Just gotta let my play do the talking.
I love that song. The Deer District gonna be lit tonight. Game 2 in Milwaukee as the Bucks look to even the series before it heads to hot Atlanta. Game 1, Trae Young stole the show, and Giannis' supporting cast took some heat for not stepping up. Stephen A, who's the most important player in Game 2?
Just Trae Young, just like he was in Game 1. Let me remind everybody, 48 points and 11 assists. Let me remind everybody, cat quick with passing ability, and he can shoot long-range shots at a 34% clip. Ain't the greatest, but he still makes them when they count. Oh, by the way, he's a magician at drawing fouls, which puts defenses on its heels because they're scared they're going to get in foul trouble. Oh, by the way, he makes you change your game plan because you got to go small, because you can't have somebody like Brook Lopez in the game because Trae Young will put him in pick-and-roll situations, forcing him to even come out and guard him, which he won't do because he's too slow for that, okay? Or, peek or tease like he's going out, but opening the floor up for an alley-oop to Clint Capella or John Collins. This is the bottom line. When you look at Trae Young, I said it before the series began, even though I picked the Milwaukee Bucks. Trae Young is the key. He cannot be spectacular. If he is spectacular, he's their only hope. If Trae Young is spectacular, Atlanta wins this series. I'm counting on him not doing in Game 1, not doing the rest of the series, rather, what he did in Game 1. Because if that happens, Atlanta's going to the NBA Finals. You've got to find a way to neutralize Trae Young. Drew Holiday, you can't try to get in a shootout with him. You can't try to score 40 just because you know he putting up buckets. You got to remember, you're there because you're the all-defensive team, first team all-defensive NBA. That's your job. Chris Middleton, excuse me, I thought you were a secondary option. Damn, we ain't asking you to be James Harden or Kyrie Irving, but could you at least be Chris Middleton as opposed to an imposter? Show the hell up. I mean, my God, you do have skills. You're about 6'8". You got a mid-range game. You can handle, you can shoot, you can score. Why don't you act like it? Because the Milwaukee Bucks are going to need that from him because Giannis in his perimeter game can't be relied upon late in the game. That's going to have to be Chris Middleton.
So, but your answer is Trae Young, right?
Trae Young. Trae Young is the priority. Most important player.
Okay. Because you ended, your natural flow of your thoughts brought you eventually to the right place, which is, the answer is Chris Middleton. And the reason it's Chris Middleton is because he's not a superstar. Trae Young is a superstar. We all agree now. Certainly a top 15 player in the NBA. That guy you can rely on to be great. That's why he's a superstar. Same thing with Giannis. Giannis gave you what? Was it 34, 12 and something Game 1? Even when Giannis is bad, he's still putting up star numbers. That's why Giannis and Trae are superstars, because they're reliably productive. When we think they're not productive, it's at a certain level. Well, he scored 24 points and grabbed 10 boards, but he was inefficient, right? They can be relied on. But the reason I thought the Bucks would win this series is, as much as people in Milwaukee like to tell me that they have a big three, they do not, because these guys are not consistently great, Middleton and Drew Holiday. I did think that given the absence of a team like the Nets with Kyrie and Harden, they didn't have those guys available, that actually the Bucks would have in this series the third best player. Middleton. So Giannis would have the best help. He'd have the best crime partner. Middleton went 0 for 9 from 3 in game 1. They lost by 1 possession, Stephen A. And you could talk about Drew Holiday's defense. He wasn't getting a lot of help, but he was scoring. But that's the issue with Middleton and Holiday. They're usually good and sometimes excellent, but they're not usually excellent. If they were usually great, they would be perennial all-stars. Chris Middleton in the regular season, Stephen A, takes 5 or 6 threes a game, hits over 40% of them, hits like 90% of his free throws, gets to the line 4 or 5 times a game. He's got to be at least that guy. We can't be looking at this game 2 or this series and say Collins is the 3rd best player in the series. If that happens, the Bucks will lose. I think you can rely on Giannis to be a great big because that's what he is. That's why Shaq said he could take the Superman name because he recognized, and so did you, Stephen A. He's really a big dressed up as a wing, and he'll take it strong. And Trey, we already know. What will Middleton do? Will he step up or will he fade? If he steps up, the Bucks will win. He's the most important player in Game 2.
Here's the reason I disagree with you, Max Kellerman. Drew Holiday didn't show up and play defense. Chris Middleton shot 6 of 23 in Game 1, okay? If Trae Young doesn't have the game that he has, the Milwaukee Bucks still win this game. Everything is about Trae Young. If Trae Young explodes, Milwaukee loses. If you neutralize him, Milwaukee wins. See, Chris Middleton, we want this from him. We should demand it from him. He is in the midst of a $180 million contract, by the way. All of that's true. But even without it, you still win this game and this series if you neutralize Trae Young.
Oh.
The problem is you didn't do it in Game 1. The problem is Philly didn't do it for 4 games. The problem is the Knicks couldn't do it for 2 games. Okay? That's the problem. You can't neutralize Trae Young. You neutralize him, you beat the Hawks.
But that's what I'm saying. You can't really, a superstar, Stephen A, usually will find out another way to hurt you. You draw a double and he'll find the open guy. Trae Young, what do you always say? Cat quick, right? And can kill you a lot of different. It's not just shooting. He's a team player. And by the way, as the leader of that team, what do we constantly hear this about this team? It's a real brotherhood. These guys, we hear it from the players, we hear it from the press in the area, we hear it from their fans. These dudes love each other. They play for each other. A lot of that has to do with their leader and the way he plays. He will fill it up if he needs to. If he needs to help you another way, that's what he'll do. So I don't think that you can really neutralize Trae Young. Yes, he doesn't have to score 48 points, but he'll hurt you in other ways.
The point is who's most important. What I'm saying to you is with or without Chris Middleton, Milwaukee could win. Atlanta can't do it without Trae Young.
No, well, they can't do it without Giannis either. My point is you can take for granted Giannis and Trae will play up because they are superstars. So I'm looking at everyone else who needs to step up.
But wait a minute. Giannis is around what he normally does, Max.
Yeah,
Giannis had like 34 and 12. Listen to me. Giannis is around 30 and 12, 30, 30, around that area. Trae Young is around 25. We ain't talking 48. That's the difference. That's what I'm saying. In other words, what I'm trying to say to you is if Trae Young rolls out there, Max, and he got 26, 27 points, he got 10 assists or something like that, I get your point. I'm not talking about that because that's what we expect from them. I'm saying with him, we're seeing explosions.
But
that can't happen.
Playoff series. My point is we have to look at Trae Young now, and we've seen a couple of these young guys in the last year or two do this. We have to look at Trae Young. I think we have to assume he plays up to the moment. He plays big with the chips on the line. So if he's 25 or 26 in the regular season, he's 30, 32 in the playoffs. Now, you're right, that's not 48. But he doesn't need to score 48 to beat this Bucks team if Middleton doesn't show up. Because you could say Giannis usually does this in the regular season. Trae does even better in the playoffs, but he's been doing that all along. Middleton doesn't usually shoot 6 of 23.
No, Max. The knock against him is the inconsistency, not the ability. The knock against Middleton. The knock against Middleton. No, that's religiously. religiously on a night in, night out basis. Although the averages will be there, on a night in, night out basis, you don't know what you're going to get from it.
And that is my very point when I talk about the difference between a real big three. I look at Phoenix, Chris Paul, Devin Booker. I think DeAndre Ayton has elevated himself. And a fake big three, Giannis, Middleton, and Holiday. Middleton and Holiday are good players. They're not great players. And Middleton has to figure out a way to be the best version of himself tonight. And if he can do that consistently in this series, the Bucks will win. If he can't, they won't.
Stephen A, let me ask you this. The Bucks are favored by 8 when we're talking about stars and big threes and all that. Do you think Trae Young is the biggest star, the biggest draw left in the postseason?
Right now, he may be because of the way that he's playing. I would not have told you that if you're just looking at the teams on face value, and I would not have come out with his name. You know, I would have been a Booker guy. I would have been a Paul George guy. I would have been a Giannis guy. But based on the way they've performed thus far in the postseason, Trae Young has stole the show. Trae Young has sent the Knicks home. Trae Young has sent Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons home and got Ben Simmons on the verge of being traded. By the way, I got some information about that too, by the way, anytime y'all want it.
Let's hear it.
Let's hear
it now. I want to hear it now.
You look at Trae Young, I mean, this is what he does. As it pertains to Ben Simmons, here's the reality. As it was reported, Rich Paul talked to the Philadelphia 76ers, and obviously he's Ben Simmons' agent, so you're going to want some involvement. Didn't ask for a trade, but certainly if Ben Simmons were to be traded, he wants some say in where he goes. That's what the reality is. And in the end, Philadelphia is trying to claim that Philadelphia is not interested in moving Ben Simmons. Let me tell y'all something. That's a damn lie. That's a damn lie. Okay? It's just that they're not interested in getting trash back for him. You make a solid, bona fide offer. The Philadelphia 76ers are going to consider it. I believe the Golden State Warriors are going to make a push for Ben Simmons. Okay? So keep your ears tuned. Stay tuned. Ben Simmons, it's possible Ben Simmons can end up in Golden State with Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, and Draymond Green. I'm not saying it's going to happen, all right? But calls have already been made. Things are percolating, and it wouldn't surprise me at all if something like that ended up going down. This notion that Ben Simmons ain't no way Philadelphia is moving him, hell yeah, they'll move him if it's the right offer. They won't move him for garbage. They won't move him for something that's not a good offer. But I'm telling you, I know a lot of people in Philly, as y'all both know.
Yeah.
Ben Simmons, let them get the right offer. Ben's gone.
I'm looking at Trae Young. That's good info, Stephen A. I'm looking at Trae Young's numbers in the playoffs because he's made the playoffs 3 times in his career because the East is weak. And I'm looking in the regular season. Trae Young is the biggest star left in these playoffs because of the way he plays. Normally, he's 24-9, 24 points, 9 assists. He's a star, whether or not he makes the All-Star team. In the playoffs, he's 30-11. He's played in 13 games over the course of 3 seasons. This is not a fluke. This is who he is. He's a 30-11 dude when it matters most. He is, and Devin Booker, I think. You've identified him correctly without the face mask. You know, if it's really Devin Booker, that's his main competition. But since Trae Young always has the ball in his hands and he has a greater sway on the outcome of a game in a playoffs with, we don't know if Kawhi will be there or not, Giannis, Chris Paul, Trae Young's the biggest star.
By the way, Stephen A, can Devin Booker not wear that? Or does he have to wear it because of the broken nose?
It's a broken nose. And so he reached out to Rip Hamilton and what have you, and Rip Hamilton gave him some advice. And the advice Rip Hamilton gave was that don't take the mask off. Keep it on no matter what. Keep it on when you sit down. Keep it on when you're practicing. Keep it on when you shoot free throws and stuff like that because you need to get used to it. He's got a broken nose. It's legit. And so he's probably going to have to keep it on, especially when you got a guy like Patrick Beverley defending you because he might hit you with his hands or he might hit you with his head. He's very, very aggressive, and you don't want that head to collide with that nose.
Don't blow your nose, Book. Your eyes will swell shut. Don't blow your nose.
Yeah, and they also lost Cameron Payne with the ankle. We'll see if he's back. All right, guys. Paul George and the Clippers take Game 3, and now some say the PG bashing It's got us. The Mavericks cut ties with Rick Carlisle, who's taking his talents back to Naptown to coach the Pacers. Now, could Jason Kidd be taking his talents back to Dallas? Well, Carlisle co-signed, giving a ringing endorsement to his former player in Dallas. Jason Kidd as the right man to lead their superstar Luka Doncic and take a young, talented squad to the next level. Kidd was serving as an assistant with the Lakers the past few years. Now, the Mavericks apparently are not done yet, as our Tim McMahon is reporting that Dallas has been in talks with Nike executive Nico Harrison to join the front office. Max?
Yeah.
Is Jason Kidd a step forwards?
No, I don't think so. I think that they had a good coach, and Jason Kidd has not shown to be that based on the record, Stephen A. I think we have to be fair. And we like Jason Kidd as a player and was one of the all-time greats, but look at his coaching record. He had brief success at one point with the Bucks. He instituted a new kind of a defense, which the league then figured out and he never really got away from it. And they went from a good defensive team for 1 year when Kidd tried something new to one of the worst or one of the lesser, like bottom third defensive team the following 3 seasons before he was eventually fired. So, and you look at his situation with the Nets, he tried to take over basketball operations, at least that was what was stated at the time, and they got rid of him because they saw it as like a power grab. If his head coaching record, lifetime, is below 500, that doesn't mean he can never be a good or successful NBA head coach. But if you want to compare him to a good coach with a winning record and then say, is this a step forward or backward? I have to say it's backward.
I respectfully disagree. And I would tell you that it's a delicate conversation for me because, again, I've gone back many, many years with Rick Carlisle. I know him very well. He's a friend, and I respect the hell out of him, and he's a champion as a coach, and I think the man knows what the hell he's doing, and I'm very, very happy that he's got the job in Indy. I would tell you this. Since they won the championship in Dallas, however, the last 10 years, they've gone to the playoffs 6 times. They missed the playoffs 4 times. Of the 6 times they made the playoffs, they went home in the first round every single time. So for the last decade, you haven't been to the first round. There does come a point in time where every organization, it's not about your skills, it's not about your knowledge, it's not about your abilities. It's about whether or not there's the need for a new voice. And that's what this is, which is why I support Jason Kidd getting this job. Let's understand something here. Today's player wants a coach that they have a relationship with, wants a coach they feel that they can trust and that they can vibe with. Now, I don't think with Rick Carlisle there's any issue of trust, but in terms of having the kind of coach that you can vibe with on a personal level, clearly something was missing there. We saw the problems with Luka. Luka was leading the league in technical fouls. Luka was speaking out against the team. Luka was a bit truculent at times. People called him immature. Mike Wilbon and others have highlighted that reality. Mark Cuban has come to his defense, no doubt. But the bottom line is it took Mark Cuban coming to his defense because that was a belief that was growing to the point where even when I interviewed Luka Doncic, he acknowledged that there were people that were feeling that way about him and there were changes and modifications that he needed to make. So when we understand that, now we get to Jason Kidd. In Brooklyn, he actually did a good job, got to the semifinals his first year there, the only year there. But alienated some folks. They thought it was somewhat of a power grab. He had to go out there. Same thing with Milwaukee. Took him to the playoffs 2 times in his 3.5 years coaching that team. Developed Giannis, inherited Giannis, and developed him. The biggest thing that they say about Jason Kidd and the staffs that he has assembled is that they're incredibly big on player development, which is why the belief was the Los Angeles Lakers wanted him, but they didn't feel comfortable hiring him because of the checkered past stuff, first with domestic violence in the year 2000, 21 years ago, and then with the DUI in 2012. The bottom line is this. Man is happily married, hasn't been in any incidences whatsoever. He's been an assistant coach. Everybody knows he knows what he's talking about and he's doing. And in the case of the Dallas Mavericks, I'm told he wouldn't be the coach there if it were not for Dirk Nowitzki, who was just brought on as a consultant. His former coach that he won a championship for, Rick Carlisle, spoke up for him. Dirk Nowitzki spoke up for him. And Luka signed off and endorsed it. If it wasn't for Luka and Dirk Nowitzki, he wouldn't be the head coach in Dallas. That's an organization that's saying, We're moving in a different direction. We tried it this way. Our time is up. Now it's time for us to move forward. That's the intel that I received, Max, and I buy it.
Yeah, look, I think it's a good point that sometimes, even if a coach is excellent, you need a new voice. I accept that. The question is Jason Kidd the right choice? In the positive ledger, you're right. He did excellent developmental work with the Greek Freak in Milwaukee. And he is a point guard who won a championship in Dallas and a Hall of Famer, obviously with a good relationship with the greatest player in franchise history. And now he has the endorsement of the guy who's probably going to go down as replacing Dirk as the greatest player in franchise history. So those are all in the plus column, right? I'm looking at his head coaching record. In Brooklyn, 44-38. It's not setting the world on fire, but it's a nice job.
That's his first year.
Yep, first year. And then got fired in a power grab. When you talk about trust, you know, the powers that be did not feel that he was trustworthy. Then in Milwaukee, he goes 500, then 33-49, then 42-40, and then 23-22. This is not, you may be right that he's developing players, because at the time, Brogdon was the rookie of the year, and Giannis had come along, but it's not like he had 10 years to do it, but it's not like he had a year either. It never translated to dominance on the court. And as I pointed out earlier, it was the stubbornness about his defensive scheme that only worked briefly, and then what really had them as one of the lesser defensive teams in the league.
That's actually not true. I'm not saying that part is not true, meaning that didn't happen. I mean, but that wasn't the real problem. The real problem was that there was not cohesiveness and trust between him and management, because he felt different decisions should have been made. In this particular instance, we all know that Luka's the man in Dallas. We all know what kind of cachet Dirk Nowitzki has, and we all know that Jason Kidd has a personal relationship with both Mark Cuban and Dirk Nowitzki, and the former coach literally walked out the door endorsing him for that job, because how can you not respect Rick Carlisle? And so the combination of all of those things, I think, lends itself towards the concerns that you had in Brooklyn and Milwaukee not being a concern in Dallas, not to mention the fact that he can't afford for something like that to happen again, because if it happens again in Dallas, he'll never get another head coaching job. And he knows
put it this way. He has not disqualified himself with his coaching from ever getting another head coaching job. I agree with that. I think you argued that persuasively, the case for him. I'll say this. If it were me and it was my team, I wouldn't want Jason Kidd as the head coach.
I would, because Luka's my guy. And I know that when it comes to point guards, there are very, very few people more qualified to coach and tutor a point guard than Jason Kidd.
That is true.
We'll leave it on that note. The Mavs haven't been out of the first round since they won the championship. That was in 2011, 10 years ago. Guys, with the Olympics approaching, Max Kellerman with a shocking take on Team USA. He says a goal for their first ever conference finals win last night. Playoff P has taken over as the leader of the Clippers since losing his partner Kawhi Leonard in Game 4 of the Jazz series. But he also received criticism, especially after missing key free throws at the end of Game 2 in the Clippers' loss. Doris Burke isn't having any of it. Take a listen.
I am so tired of people being critical of Paul George. He's played every other day since June 2nd. He has carried an enormous burden. He has led the playoffs in minutes and touches. And in the fourth quarter of Game 2, big shot after big shot. Yes, he missed the free throws. And yes, he probably didn't help himself calling himself playoff P. But he is fighting through incredible fatigue. 27, 15, and 8. Pipe down, critics of Paul George.
Tell him, Doris. Big Perk here with us. Perk, good to see you, sir. All over the coverage last night, doing an excellent job as always, and of course this morning on Get Up. But Max, I'm going to start with you. Should people stop bashing Paul George?
No, it's not bashing. It's truth-telling. And by the way, Doris Burke was truth-telling too. That's why I said I wasn't going to blame their loss on his missed free throws, just like I'm not going to blame the Nets' loss on Kevin Durant airballing a three. Because yes, he played all those minutes and he had carried his team and he was exhausted and he missed the shot. Same thing with Paul George. She pointed it out. He's been carrying his team, or at least leading a team in the absence of Kawhi. He's played more than anybody else. He plays both ends of the floor, and he missed some free throws. That's not the only reason they lost that game. So she's right about that. She's telling the truth. But people are also telling the truth, like I will right now when I say normally Paul George plays at a certain level in the regular season. Not quite MVP level, But it ain't just a run-of-the-mill all-star either. It's an all-star plus level. And in the playoffs, he's usually worse than that. Actually, in these playoffs, even when his numbers aren't great, I think he's taken strides in the right direction. Still, would I say he's as good as he normally is when the pressure's not on as much? No, I wouldn't. And was I surprised that he missed the free throws? No, I wasn't. We all see it. Like, you don't want to hang a dude with that rap, right? You understand I take no pleasure in saying it, but you look at a dude like Trae Young, you can see the bigger the moment, the better he plays. And Paul George seems to have the opposite issue. The bigger the moment, the lesser the version of himself he becomes. Now, normal Paul George is an excellent player. So even a lesser version of him, I'll take it on my team, right? It's an above average starter. But we all see it. It's not even last night. He played defense, but he didn't have a great offensive game. They could use a great offensive game right now from Paul George.
Let me chime in here. First of all, thanks to Big Perk for the job you did yesterday on SportsCenter with Stephen A. I think you're doing a sensational job, and I love you for the job that you're doing, big bro. I just wanted to say that on national television. Let me say this about Doris Burke and Molly, Max, Perk. I respectfully disagree with Doris Burke because I want to get into a bigger issue. And I want to preface my comments by saying I consider Doris Burke basketball royalty. I really mean that. She is phenomenal, and I'm so proud to call her a colleague. I will say this respectfully why I disagree with her, because I think that her comments ventured to touch away from just the game, and I think it assisted the mindset and the thought process that has some of us spectating basketball looking at a lot of these dudes as soft mentally. The reality of the situation is clear. These players are the best basketball players in the world. We all know that. When we're evaluating them against each other. We're saying, excuse me, we know you better than any average Joe out there. But as we evaluate this game, we're dissecting and deducing who you are, what you're worth, and what you bring to the table because it all comes with the game. There's millions of people that want to play basketball. There's only 450 plus that get to play it on an annual basis in the National Basketball Association. And every single year, those 450 ain't the same. There's a select few that's the same year after year after year. But there's a lot of changing parts. Why? Because there's somebody on the come up that people feel are better than you are. And they're the ones that get the check. And they're the ones that get to ride first class. And they're the ones that get to live in 5-star hotels as opposed to being in the G League like Big Perk was explaining to me yesterday on 8 and 10-hour bus rides, living in Motel 6s and Western Inns and all of this other stuff. The point that I'm trying to make is that as you break down and you dissect a player, you're talking about what they bring to the table against their contemporaries. And that's what elevated the profile of the sport, which enables them to get paid the millions that they get paid. And for us to get paid what we get paid. And for the television networks and the league itself and everybody to benefit monetarily in an exponential fashion. This is what comes with it. And so when you get on Paul George and you say, excuse me, you missed 2 free throws. Why is that significant? Because you shoot 86.8% for the season. Your career 84.8% free throw shooter. And in 100 plus times at the free throw line this year, where you've had 2 shots at the free throw line, you missed both of them once out of 100 plus times. But then you wait until game 2 with 8.2 seconds left in regulation and the game on the line to miss both. People are going to react to that. People are going to evaluate that. People are going to deduce. And what they're going to say is that you ain't no scrub like most of us out here. You ain't no average player. You still a star. But when we think about the creme de la creme, there's another level that you may not have made it to. And it's up to Paul George to prove otherwise, which he has an opportunity to do. There's nothing wrong with that. And there's nothing to get sick and tired about that over That's my personal opinion, respectfully.
Well, no. Well, let me start off by saying, Molly, I appreciate the love. I appreciate y'all having me on First Take, Max. I appreciate you embracing me on this show and the Max Kellerman show. And Stephen A, I appreciate you, big bro, for putting me on all the platforms, all your shows. It's very appreciated, and I appreciate you from the bottom of my heart to all three of you guys. Now, let me get to this point. Doris Burke is a GOAT at what she does, what she brings to the table. I love listening to her commentary. Sure. I think she's a wonderful human being. Outside of that, great spirit, great energy, just an all-around great person. But I disagree, and here's why, okay? Paul George put the pressure on himself. He put the pressure on himself. No other person in the world gave him the nickname Playoff P. He gave himself that nickname. So with that being said, you put yourself under a microscope to perform well at the highest level when it matters the most. So when it's time to deliver, people are watching you very closely. Didn't Kevin Durant about 2 or 3 years ago when they were playing the Clippers and the Clippers were giving Pat Bev and Lou Will was giving them problems the first couple of games, and Kevin Durant came out and he said, "You know who I am. I'm Kevin Durant." And what did he go on to do to the Los Angeles Clippers? He killed them. And I mean, he buried them, put them in a body bag. Okay? And then you go back and look at a guy like Damian Lillard. You know he always points to his wrist. You know what time it is. It's Dame time. It's nothing fake about that because the man is clutch. When he points at his wrist, everybody knows we're about to get an epic performance. So with that being said, to Stephen A. Smith's point, you're getting paid $100+ million, okay? Not only did you give yourself a nickname, you're getting paid a bag. At the end of the day, you're getting paid to deliver in great fashion, especially when it matters the most. And look, I would sit back and I would feel sorry for Paul George if I didn't play the game. I would sit back and say, oh, it's not fair for Paul George to get criticized if I didn't play with 10 Hall of Famers. But with that being said, I don't want to hear that. You can miss me with that. If Paul George performs well, I'm going to give him his props. If he don't, then I gotta tell it like it is. We have to keep it 100. I don't understand why people get so sensitive and say, back off Paul George. Nobody backs off LeBron James. When he don't finish the finals, he takes the heat like a man. I just don't understand these guys and people being sensitive and all this. No, Paul George gave himself his own nickname. Live up to it.
Well, guys, Paul George has top 10 talent. Stephen A, to your point, we know everyone in the NBA is great. It's barely an exaggeration to say everyone on the earth who can play in the NBA is playing in the NBA. I don't think there's a more competitive endeavor on the planet Earth, right? You get to be a big star. It's fun to do. It's not tackle football. You're not getting hit in the head. You're making millions of dollars. Everyone wants to do it, and only a select handful get to do it. We know they're all great. We're comparing them to each other. I think that's a great point. Paul George has top 10 talent. His size, his athletic ability, his basketball IQ, his shooting ability, his defense. Stop me when you hear a guy that you would take Paul George over. LeBron, KD, Kawhi, Steph, Harden, AD, Embiid, Jokic, Luka, Giannis. I just named 10 guys, not in the top 10. Would you take him over Dame? Would you take him over Trey? You see the way Trey's playing right now. Would you take him over Booker? Would you? I mean, maybe some people would.
Well,
I would not.
Max.
Would you take him over Mitchell? Tatum?
Max. Bottom line is this. Even if you're not a top 25 player in the NBA, you're still big time. You might not be a superstar, but you're still big time when you consider there's 450 players in the NBA.
No doubt. That's my point. Paul George, if this is an issue I think that Doris Burke is identifying, that on the one hand, we think of Paul George as almost a fringy top 10 player, top 15.
Yep.
He might not be top 20. I mean, that's what we're doing here. We're evaluating these guys.
Against themselves, and that's the important point. What we're saying is you're the best in the world. Mm-hmm. And of those people that are your contemporaries, here is where you are amongst the elite. And so as a result of that, but unfortunately, we live in a day and age where we got too many of these dudes, not all, not most, but too many of these dudes that are mentally soft. The slightest little criticism or critique, they want to take to the nth degree, and they can't handle it. And there's no excuse for it, to be quite honest with you, because you're literally saying, you're great, but now we're going to measure that greatness against other greats to see where you rank.
Yeah.
That's it.
All right. We
That's all we're doing.
We got to go to break. Perk's coming back. I know this, guys. I know who's not soft, and I know who's the clear-cut best third grader in the country. That would be Stone. I can't see Perk's face right now, but I saw your Twitter. I saw that video. Scottie Pippen says Doc Rivers is the reason to blame for Ben Simmons' failures.
Stone's getting his driver's license right now.
Right? Oh, my gosh. Stephen A. Smith's response to that take. And Max Kellerman. The U.S. men's basketball Olympic roster is set. Take a look at who will be representing the red, white, and blue. The roster headlined by Kevin Durant and Damian Lillard, an emerging star, Devin Booker, some other notables making the team, Draymond, Chris Middleton, Bam Adebayo, Kevin Love, and Drew Holiday. Max?
Yeah.
How confident are you in Team USA winning the gold?
Not super confident. I think that they'll be competitive. They may be the odds-on favorite, but it's not like, look, guys, here's the team that we would send that would win the gold, okay? Without any question, 100%. Here's a starting five. You tell me where I'm telling any lies. Steph, Harden, LeBron, KD, Kawhi. There's no way to beat that team. By the way, Damian Lillard and AD off the bench. It would crush everybody. And that's what we used to do when we finally started sending our pros. We're like, look at us, we're the best in the world. And then in '88, we sent, Charles Smith and Stacey Augmon and Dan Marley, good players, but not our very best players. And we lose. Then we got serious and made a dream team. And then again in '04, Okafor and Steph Marbury and Sean Marion, nice players, but in their day they were good, but that wasn't our best squad, and we lose. Now, I get it. Guys are aging. They've played for Team USA a lot. They want to rest. I'm not saying, hey, LeBron, you need to play. I get it. But this is what happens when you start sending your kind of third-tier team. You could wind up losing. This is the kind of team that can lose in the Olympics.
Well, it could lose, but am I confident they will not lose? Yes, I think they'll win. But I will say this. Listen, I'm very fond. I like Kevin Love, but what is he doing on his team? He played 25 games last year. A couple of years ago, how many games did he play? He played 22 games. Last season, he played 56 games. I mean, he's missed a lot of games over the last couple of years, and I'm just wondering, I know he can play, I know he can shoot, but when you miss that much time, I mean, don't you need to focus on your NBA career, even though it's only a couple of weeks in the summer, overseas or whatever? I mean, but don't you need to focus on playing here, and being healthy enough to play? That would be my only thing in regards to that. But am I confident that men's USA basketball could win? Yes, but here's the thing. And this is a weird kind of thing for me to say because I'm obviously, I'm a black man first, but I'm an American and I'm proud to be an American citizen. I'm patriotic in that regard. I kind of like the idea of it being up for grabs. I kind of like the idea of it being a challenge where we don't stack the deck per se. I kind of like it because we've already done it. We've shown how dominant we can be. See, we have to send a message. We had to send a message, after the Barcelona games, 1992 Olympic Dream Team and all of that stuff. And then we sort of dipped with Larry Brown coaching the team and all that stuff. You know how much I love Larry Brown. He's a Hall of Fame. He's one of the greatest coaches I've ever seen. But he didn't ingratiate himself to the LeBrons, the Melos, the Allen Iversons of the world during Olympic competition. We get all of that. But what I'm saying is that because we've showed, particularly with Coach K coaching over the last 3 Olympics, we've obviously put our sheer dominance on display. I have no problem with it being up for grabs with some of the secondary stars or even lesser in the NBA representing Team USA and going and competing against teams in Europe, because we already know, the world knows, if we send our best, there's no competition. We've established that reality, and now that we've done that, there's nothing wrong with giving others shine and seeing what they bring to the table.
Well, I mean, I hear you, except that remember what it feels like when we actually win a bronze. That's not a good feeling. Then it's like, that's why everyone plays. After we win a bronze, that's why we send a sick all-star, all-time dream team's killer squad, because we're like, oh, wait a minute. We thought we wanted it to be closer, but nah, we're not taking bronze, and we crush everyone.
But once we did it, though, and what I'm trying to say, Max, is that if we've done destroyed everybody and we've sent the message emphatically, if we send our best, you can't mess with us. There's nothing wrong after you send that message to now take some secondary dudes and say, well, we think we could beat you with that too.
Why not send the college kids? Stephen A., you identified the most interesting thing about this whole subject off the top, and it's something someone on our set knows something about. Someone in Molly's family. Jalen Rose brought up Kevin Love's presence on the team and said it was tokenism. That's like, it's not just like, why is he playing? Of course it's tokenism. Of course it is. Why? How else could Kevin Love, who has not played it, Kevin Love used to be an excellent, excellent player. A multiple-time All-Star, max contract player, 25-12, best player on a team that made or a 500 team in a vicious Western Conference. He hasn't been that in a while. Kevin Love hasn't been an all-star caliber player in years now. Why is he on the team? That's what I mean when you start. Maybe he wants to showcase himself and maybe he gets traded or something. But if you want to do what you're saying, hey, let's give some other guys a shot, then put together a team that is actually our next level best player.
That's
and
what I
only
said.
with respect to that.
That is what I said. That's
yeah,
why
I'm saying, but that's not what they did.
On the team.
But that's not what they did if Kevin Love's on.
That's my point. That's my point. I did say Kevin Love, what's he doing on the team? Now he's been injured. It's not like he's been on the court and he's a scrub. He's been injured. He hasn't played.
Sure.
I'm just saying that because you haven't played so much, your primary responsibility should be getting back healthy and playing back in the NBA as opposed to representing Team USA. But again, I don't mind. I love the fact that Bradley Beal is going to put his skills on display. Jason Tatum's going to put his skills on display. You got Damian Lillard and these boys. These are stars.
And
these are stars.
Our primary, you're right.
I don't think you need the LeBrons and KDs of the world to win this.
Kevin Love's primary responsibility should be to get healthy to play for his team. And Team USA's primary responsibility, putting the team together, should be to get to whether or not LeBron goes or the very, very best players go, to put a team together that they think will win, not worry about getting one white dude on the team to make sure there's some representation. And I totally agree with Jalen about that.
Yeah. They might get their butts kicked down low, dude. That's what I'm intrigued by Team USA as well, because we don't have any bigs, really. Bam Adebayo is not that big. Draymond Green is not a true big. Now, these are elite defenders. They can do some things, but them big boys in Europe, they put that meat, Jokic. They put that pork on them and lean on them a little bit. It might be a little bit different. Now, you got three-point shooters on this team to match the three-point shooters that are out there in Europe, and they can wreak havoc, and I get that. But size could be a factor. And I'm intrigued by what I'm going to see from Team USA. I like it, though. I really like it.
All right. We'll leave it there, guys. When we come back, Scottie Pippen going scorched earth on Kevin Durant and Ben Simmons. His blunt takes on both